A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Jesus and his disciples left from there and began a journey through Galilee, but he did not wish anyone to know about it. He was teaching his disciples and telling them, "The Son of Man is to be handed over to men. They will kill him. And 3 days after his death, the Son of Man will rise." But they did not understand the saying, and they were afraid to question him. They came to Capernaum, and once inside the house, he began to ask them, "What were you arguing about on the way?" But they remained silent. They had been discussing among themselves on the way who was the greatest. Then he sat down, called the 12, and said to them, "If anyone wishes to be first, he shall be the last of all and the servant of all." Taking a child, he placed it in their midst, and putting his arms around it, he said to them, "Whoever receives one child such as this in my name receives me, and whoever receives me receives not me, but the one who sent me." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
All right, anyone willing to admit on a final score yet? No? Okay. Now we can focus on God. Today's gospel is about opposites and contradictions. And through these, Jesus invites us to radical change in the way that we live our lives. Radical change. Let's break it down a little bit. In the movies, a really good director uses music to set the mood. And as the movie progresses, we're able to get a sense that something is changing because the music changes. There's a famous movie in the 1970s. It goes like this. Da-na, 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 da-na. Jaws. Even today, I'm sure that as you hear that, those couple notes, it trips something in your brain. You hear it and you know that a day at the beach is about to go horribly wrong and a shark is going to cause trouble. If Mark's gospel were a movie, this passage today would be where the music changes. Today is where his ministry ends in Galilee. There's no more parables. There's no more public teaching. Today's gospel talks about the start of his journey to Jerusalem, where he will be tortured and killed. This is our first contradiction. Here is a son of a carpenter from a backwater town in a backwater part of the Roman Empire. Yet somehow he has made a name for himself. He came from nothing, but kings and governors and emperors know who he is. Jesus, you might say, is at the top of his game. Things are going well. So well, in fact, that his buddies, the apostles, are arguing about who's the first among them, who gets to share the spotlight with him when they get to Jerusalem. You can almost imagine those conversations. Well, he picked me first, so obviously I'm the one that should stand next to him when we kick this thing off in Jerusalem. Or another maybe, I've got people skills, so I should be a spokesperson. Or maybe we had dinner at my house, so I should be the one. The music has changed, but they don't hear it because they're so tied up in their own personal world. They totally miss it. Jesus isn't going to Jerusalem to leverage his fame and popularity. He's going there to give up everything. He's given it all away. Contradiction. Humans think about power. We think about forcing others to submit, controlling people. God thinks about power in terms of humility, weakness, service. Jesus tells a story about a child to help them understand this. He places a child smack in the middle of the group. We need to understand what that child represents to understand the story, though. She doesn't represent innocence or immaturity or youthful happiness or anything like that. That child represents power, or more specifically, a lack of power. Because in Jesus' time, children had no power. Slaves had power and rights. Prisoners even had rights and power. But on the social scale, children had nothing. They were helpless. And that's why we hear so many stories in the gospel about women and children, because they were completely at the mercy of society. And Jesus wants his disciples to become just like that child. He wants them to follow him. He wants them to be glorified, but in his way, not in the way of man. There's also another part of this gospel that we can't ignore. And I think it's something that we like to gloss over because it's difficult. It's way harder than most things that are asked of us. The transformation that Jesus asks us to make is not some wimpy self-help program. It's radical. And we need to ask ourselves what it means to be called to a radically different way of life. I'm not sure that any of us, are suited for radical change. We like to think of change as a matter of degrees. A little bit this way, a little bit that way, a little left. Nothing too crazy. I'm going to try and be nicer to my family. I'm going to start to diet so I can be thinner. I'm going to spend less time at work so I can get to my kids' games and be a better parent. Our lives are filled with these ers: better, healthier, nicer, calmer. Or we think about things in terms of more or less. More of the good stuff, less of the bad stuff. Going to sleep more, going to pray more, going to drink less, going to listen more. But there's a problem. There is a huge problem with thinking this way. You see, what we're actually saying is that we simply want a slightly better version of our current selves when we think like that. Just a slightly better version of our current selves. I don't want to make that dramatic change. So it becomes a negotiation. How much time do I need to put into the gym to lose 10 pounds? How many more games do I need to get to so I can feel like I'm a better parent? We even do it in our faith lives. Exactly how many Sunday masses can I miss during football season or golf season and still feel like I'm a good Catholic? Changing our lives becomes, for a lot of us, just a big negotiation. And we all have particular issues that give us trouble. We're not bad. It's just that we're not quite as good as we'd want to be. We're not really selfish. We just have a lot of things going on in our lives. We don't have time to make a big change. These changes are just a negotiation and justification to our own minds. Jesus isn't asking for a slightly better version of our current selves. He's asking us to change radically. Give up our current selves that thinks in terms of achievements and successes. Put ourselves at the mercy of God and society completely. Don't just spend a couple hours serving others. Spend a lifetime serving others. This applies to us today too. This is not a problem of 2,000 years ago. Each night, we all should challenge ourselves before our head hits that pillow. What specific action have I taken that day to help someone that needed a servant? We go to sleep and wake up and we do it again every day of our lives. That's radical change. That's what God asks of us in this reading. Become a servant to his people. Make the kingdom of heaven a little bit more like it is here. Make earth more like the kingdom of heaven right here. We should be praying for this. God, give me the strength and courage not to be a better person, but to become a different person, one whose actions honor the God in whose image I'm created. We can't do it ourselves. It's only with God's grace that we're able to make this transformation. And that's one of the things that we're here to celebrate today and that we will do in a minute. Bring up the young ladies and young men who are about to enter on a 2-year journey to transform themselves, and they need our support.